Two fuselage aircraft, pregnant plane, wind tube airplane. There have been many strange things in aviation history. Sometimes it's a pity that most of these oddities remains only in concept and test models. Reliability is the main priority in aviation, so what can we do? In this video there are 15 unusual planes that have ever flown. X-29 was an experimental aircraft with a reverse S-sweep wing. Only two planes were produced by DARPA, the Agency for Advanced Defense Research and Development, in 1984. This experimental aircraft was designed to explore new ways for military aviation, taking advantage of technological advancement in electronics and composites. For various reasons, Grumman was chosen as the developer and manufacturer. In December 1981, it received a contract worth $87 million for the production of two aircrafts. By summer 1984, the flight copy of the aircraft was ready, but in 1991, the reverse sweep aircraft project was closed. Pregnant Guppy was a NASA aircraft designed for transporting not very heavy but very oversized cargo, mainly various elements of spacecraft, the largest of which was one of the stages of the Saturn I launch vehicle. The first Super Guppy or SG aircraft was built using the fuselage of a military transport aircraft Boeing C-97. The fuselage was extended to 43 meters and its diameter was increased to 7.6 meters. The length of the cargo compartment was 28.8 meter, while floor width was only 2.7 meter. The wing and tail were redesigned and the payload increased to 24.5 kilograms. A monoplane with a perfectly round wing. This aircraft was a traditional strut monoplane. The wing was located above the fuselage on struts, similar to how it is done in traditional biplanes. Everything in this aircraft was traditional except the shape of the wing. The round wing of the plane has ailerons on the tips. According to the developers, the main advantage of this two-seater aircraft, equipped with the Warner's Carab radial engine with capacity of 120 horsepower, was that the small wing extension allowed flight at higher temperatures than usual, with angles of attack that guaranteed a slow and safe descent. An experimental bomber with a piston engines. It was the fastest piston-powered bomber in history. The prototype's first flight took place on May 6, 1944, and a total of two copies were built. One crashed on December 16, 1955, while the other was modified into a flying laboratory to test Westinghouse's 19XB-2A jet engine. A deck-based aircraft designed for short takeoffs. For many years, the American aerospace industry has been researching the challenges of vertical short takeoff aircrafts, and work on the project began in the early 1970s as a part of a current plans for naval force rearmament. The development and construction of the aircraft prototype did not meet the schedule. Problems arose during testing, and long-term fine-tuning did not produce the desired results. The only prototype built after project's closure was sent for storage and later dismantled. An experimental interceptor fighter with fuel tanks instead of engines and the wing tips. Work on these aircrafts began in 1952 and the prototype was built in 1956. Due to delays in construction, flight testing did not begin until October 26, 1956. Leduc 0.22 was a medium-sized aircraft with swept wing built according to classical principles. Research aircraft for studying variable wing geometry. The first oblique-winged aircraft in the world. Compared to a symmetrical variable sweep wing, this design was formed 11 to 20% less drag, 14% less weight, and 26% lower wave resistance. The aircraft was completed in 1979 and flew for the first time on December 29th that same year. Tests were conducted until the beginning of 1982. During that time, 17 pilots flew the AD-1. After program ended, the aircraft went to the museum in San Carlos, where it still resides. A vertical takeoff jet aircraft with a circular wing. Research into jet VTOL vertical takeoff and landing system began in France in 1945. On one of those flights on July 25, 1968, the plane lost control at 75 meters altitude, crashed and caught fire. The pilot managed to bail out at 18-22 meters, but due to an unsuccessful landing he injured his back. A light reconnaissance and observation aircraft was developed as an alternative to light helicopters. The first flight took place in 1979 and serial production continued intermittently from 1983 to 1990 with a total of 21 aircraft produced. A number of police units in the UK purchased the aircraft, but after the crash of one police plane in Hampshire that resulted in the deaths of 2 crew members, the company's finances deteriorated and it went bankrupt. An experimental cargo and passenger aircraft designed by British aircraft engineers in the late 1950s based on the Douglas DC-4 airliner. In addition to transporting various types of cargo, Aviation traders' aircraft were also intended to be used for transporting people. At the end of 1961, this transport aircraft entered mass production. During the entire production period, British aircraft manufacturers produced 28 aircrafts of the ATL-98 model, while to date operation of the aircraft has been completely discontinued and several surviving models made up the exhibition of some British museums. Flying Pancake was a carrier-based fighter designed for vertical takeoff and landing. More precisely, it was an experimental carrier-based fighter studied by the US Navy during World War II. The fighter also had 2 large-span 4-bladed propellers equipped with their own skewing mechanism. The blades of the propellers were made of redwood or mahogany, which had a complex profile shape, and were attached to the propellers with steel eyes. This was supposed to help prevent disruptions of the airflow at high angles of attack. The propellers rotated in opposite directions, synchronized with each other. If you want to book a real plane for your trip, then visit www.avatar-aero.com. There you can find a business jet to suit your needs, and a professional personal manager will assist you with the selection and calculate the costs. Let's continue. A prototype escort fighter designed to be carried on bombers. In March 1947, the US Air Force received an order to develop 2 prototypes. On August 23, 1948, the first flight took place, which was launched from a Boeing EB-29B bomber. During flight tests, turbulence around the bomber was found to create a serious control problems, and project was closed. That was a reconnaissance aircraft with asymmetrical wings and layout. Despite its asymmetrical design, flight tests confirmed an excellent stability and maneuverability. The increased weight on the right side compensated for the engine torque. In 1945, Allied forces found several crashed BV-141 aircrafts. One was captured in British forces and sent to designers in the UK. Copies of this unique aircraft have survived to our days. An experimental aircraft for studying airflows was designed by Luigi Stipa in 1923 and built by Caproni using wood as the main construction material. The fuselage had a barrel shape. It was literally a flying barrel. In 2017, on May 31st, the presentation of the Stratolaunch Model 351 aircraft took place in California. This aircraft was equipped with a wingspan of 117 meters and a maximum takeoff weight of 590 tons. To lift the giant plane into the air, 6 jet engines with enormous power were installed on it. American model also had a rigid structure consisting of 2 fuselages. This flying machine was designed to perform space missions. According to proposed projects by engineers, such aircraft were supposed to take off at a certain altitude and provide a launching pad for launching rockets.